A brutal end to another disappointing season for Angel star Mike Trout, who is officially done for the year.
Breaking news, Mike Trout is out for the season.
36 games in 21, 82 in last year, and then this year he's played 29 games. And we're missing out on some really, really great years of one of the best players of all time.
When you hear Mike Trout's name now, it has a little different ring to it than it did 5 years ago. Before, you would probably think of him as the best player in the game, but now it's not quite the same. He took the league by storm at just 20 years old and quickly became one of the brightest stars in the league. He was considered to be the best player in the league for years. The past few years for Trout have been very disappointing though. He's been marred by several devastating injuries that not only have affected him physically, but mentally as well. He is still one of the most talented players in the league, but he just can't stay on the field. In 2024, he held the MLB lead in home runs, but his season ended after tearing his meniscus on April 29th. This, unfortunately, has become a pattern for Mike Trout in the latter half of his career. He was on pace to be one of, if not the best player of all time, but now it seems like reaching that title is going to be nearly impossible. We will never know for sure what would have happened if he was able to stay healthy, and as a result, it could possibly be one of the biggest what-if stories in MLB history. By the way, only 2% of you watching this video are subscribed, so if you enjoy it, consider subscribing. It's completely free, and you can always unsubscribe at any time. First, we need to find out just how good Mike Trout was at the start of his career. To do that, let's take a look at the top 100 players younger than 28 years old by WAR since 2000. Down here, we have some good names like Curtis Granderson and Prince Fielder. Then we move up a little more to guys like Adam Jones and Starling Marte. We have some guys that hadn't even turned 28 yet, but are still on this list like Fernando Tatis Jr. and Yordan Alvarez. But let's keep going up here past some pretty good names until we get to some future Hall of Famers like Nolan Arenado and Miguel Cabrera. This group of players is full of some of the best players of this generation: Andrew McCutchen, Hall of Famer Joe Mauer, Bryce Harper, Juan Soto, and Carlos Correa. These three right here are Manny Machado, Mookie Betts, and Albert Pujols. You might be thinking, well, where's Mike Trout? Oh, he's all the way up here with 72.5 WAR, 17.6 points higher than the second place finisher Albert Pujols. This 72.5 WAR that Trout put up before turning 28 is actually the most ever recorded by anyone who's ever picked up a bat. More than Ty Cobb, more than Mickey Mantle, more than Babe Ruth, and more than Barry Bonds. Mike Trout was quite literally having one of the best starts to an MLB career that we have ever seen. For 8 straight years, he dominated the league, not just with his elite talent, but also his insane consistency. In the span of 2012 to 2019, Trout's lowest WRC plus was in 2012 and 2014 when he put up a mark of 167. His best hitting season was in 2018 when he recorded a WRC plus of 188. To put this in perspective, just how good this is, let's take a look at the top 21 hitting seasons from 2012 to 2019 according to WRC plus. Trout is on this list all 8 years. There's only one other player that's even on it twice, and that's Christian Yelich with his 2018 and 2019 seasons. Literally nobody had this kind of consistent elite production at the plate. When you combine all 8 of those seasons together, he has a WRC plus of 174, which is by far in first, with Aaron Judge's 152 coming in second. The gap between him and Judge at 1 and 2 is as big as the gap between Judge and Robinson Cano at 2 and 31. Clearly, Trout was the best hitter in the league, but imagine if the best hitter in the league also played great defense at a premium position and was an excellent base runner to go along with it. Well, you don't have to imagine it because that is exactly what Mike Trout was. Now, Trout wasn't an elite outfielder compared to guys like Jason Hayward, Kevin Kiermaier, or Lorenzo Cain, but he was above average. He had 11 defensive runs saved during this 8-year span, which was good for 31st out of 89 qualifying outfielders. He had a 13.8 ultimate zone rating, or UZR, which was ranked 27th out of 89 qualifying outfielders. His arm ranked 4th in arm value with 11, behind only Starling Marte, Yasiel Puig, and Jackie Bradley Jr. He was also famed for his crazy home run robberies that he could execute at an impressive consistency. Finding above-average defensive center fielders is a hard task for front offices in MLB today, but finding an above-average defensive center fielder that is also the best hitter in baseball almost never happens. That is not where Mike Trout's skill set ends though. He was one of the best base runners in the league. In the 8-year span from 2012 to 2019, Trout was the third most valuable base runner according to Fangraphs base running runs above average, which takes into account all aspects of base running. He was only behind Billy Hamilton and Jarrod Dyson, who were pretty much known exclusively for their speed and athleticism. He's just ahead of D. Strange Gordon, who, like Hamilton and Dyson, was known for his speed. Mike Trout was right up there with these elite base runners, but let me remind you, he was also the best hitter in the league. It's insanely rare that you have a player that was this good at pretty much every single aspect of the game. In this 8-year stretch, Trout took home 3 AL MVP awards, and he really should have taken home 6, but that's for a whole nother video. No matter what metric you use or how you measure it, to be that good for that long consistently is something that is almost never done. Mike Trout was truly an outlier and was on pace to be the best player to ever play the game. But unfortunately, the next few years to come would not be as extraordinary. Trout would experience one of the quickest and biggest downfalls a player has ever seen, and it was all out of his control. Before the 2021 season, Trout had only suffered one serious injury in his career, and that came in 2017 when he tore his thumb ligament while sliding into second base. He would miss 47 days, but still come back and play 114 games while leading the league in both OPS and OPS+. It was a freak injury, and Trout was almost the opposite of injury-prone. He averaged 145 games over his first 8 seasons, which means he only missed 17 games per year on average. That's pretty good considering how long and grueling an MLB season can be. But in the 2021 season, that would all change. Trout was pulled from a game on May 17th after pulling up while rounding third base. He had a slight limp while walking off the field, but it didn't look like anything too serious. He was diagnosed with a calf strain and was set to miss 6 to 8 weeks. That 6 to 8 weeks, though, would come and go, but Trout was not back out there. After suffering setbacks and having his rehab pushed back, he finally announced that he was going to be shut down for the remainder of the season in September. A 6 to 8 week calf strain had turned into a season-ending injury, and all in all, Trout missed 139 days of the 2021 season, playing in just 36 games. Trout said that the injury had put him in the toughest month of his career, both mentally and physically. He realizes how many people are affected by him missing this much time, but his body wasn't allowing it. Trout's physical and mental battle with the injury bug was far from over though. He missed 35 days in the 2022 season due to a sore back. He did manage to play in 119 games for the Angels that year, which was the most since 2019. 2023 was not as promising though. He broke his hamate in his left hand and it required surgery. Once again, the injury was tagged with a 6 to 8 week recovery time. On July 3rd, Trout hit the IL and returned on time 7 weeks later and went 1 for 4 in a game on August 22nd. This was the last game Trout would play that season though. He still had pain in his left hand and was then shut down for the rest of the season. The Angels and Trout wanted to play it safe to make sure that he's healthy for the 2024 season rather than pushing it too far. He played in just 82 games in 2023, barely over half of the full 162. Playing it safe in 2023 did allow Trout to start the 2024 season healthy, but unfortunately, that would not last long. There was no sudden injury that occurred, but Trout had felt pain in his left knee and had an MRI done to eventually reveal a torn meniscus. He played his final game on April 29th, lasting just over a month of the season. You could tell that this injury wasn't just taking a physical toll on Trout, but mentally it was hurting him too. In his interview after the injury, you can clearly tell that he was experiencing more than just physical pain. This injury wasn't season-ending, but he was going to be out a few months. His rehab was on schedule, and the final step was to play for the Angels' AAA team, the Salt Lake Bees. After just one at-bat, he felt the similar soreness in his knee that initially knocked him out back in April. A couple MRIs later, and it was revealed that his meniscus had re-torn, putting an end to another season of Mike Trout's career. Over the past 4 seasons, Trout has played in 266 games out of the 648 possible games to play. That's just 41%. The crazy part about it is that he's still one of the best players in the league when he was on the field. He had an OPS plus of 159, which is still one of the best marks in the league. Even through all of this physical and mental stress, he has still performed at an elite level on the field. It would be one thing if he declined as a player, but you can't help but think, with the manner of this fall-off, what if Trout stayed healthy? Unfortunately, We will never really know the exact answer to that question. At this point, Trout has just turned 33 years old on August 7th of this year. This usually means that there's not much time left in his career, and it definitely means that he's not in his prime anymore. If you look at the average aging curve for an MLB player, you can see the trajectory for the remainder of his career is not looking the brightest. Even if he stays healthy and plays a couple full seasons here, most likely he's not going to be playing at the same level he was 5 years ago. A big portion of the value that he provided was from his above average defense and elite base running. With all of these injuries, and especially the knee issues that he's had this year, it's pretty clear that he's not going to have the same athleticism that he once had. The level of defense and base running that he was playing at requires a good amount of athleticism to sustain. The position of center field itself requires the most athleticism out of any position on the field to be elite. For this reason, there's a pretty good chance that Trout could end up as a DH/corner outfielder for the rest of his career. This move will certainly help him prevent future injury while still being able to keep his offense in play. His hitting numbers are still near the top of the league when he's on the field, so he can still provide a ton of value with his bat. With all these injuries though, it's hard to believe that's not the only thing that's held Trout back in his career. Another thing that's a stain on Trout's legacy is his winning. Of course, many fans know that the Angels haven't quite had the success that one would expect when having two generational talents on the same team. If you're looking for more detail on that, I've already made a whole video diving into that a couple months ago that you can watch after this one. Long story short, Trout has only played in 3 playoff games in his entire career, and those 3 games were in a series loss to the Kansas City Royals in 2014. Obviously, you would expect a guy who was on pace to be the greatest player of all time to have some more team success, but unfortunately, that has not happened. That is another thing that wasn't really his fault. The Angels front office and mainly owner Artie Moreno have garnered the blame for that one, as they didn't really do a great job in building around Trout. When they did go out and try to make a splash, it didn't really work out too well. The future in Anaheim is not exactly the brightest, and the Angels have a lot of questions to answer, especially when it comes to Trout. Looking at his contract, he currently has 6 years remaining, and he's getting paid $37.1 million per year. Do some quick math, and that's a total of $222.6 million until he's 38 years old. This alone is essentially going to make Trout untradeable. There's no team out there that can or is willing to take on this kind of contract with all the health issues that Trout has had. Plus, he's gone on the record in the past saying that he doesn't want to be traded and he wants to stay in Los Angeles, so a trade is probably not going to happen. Can the Angels find any success with the few years that Trout has left? The answer to that is probably not. Unfortunately, the Angels have one of, if not the worst farm system in the league, meaning that there isn't really much young help on the way. A lot of their money is tied up in 2 of the biggest contracts in the league in Trout and Rendon, so there isn't really a way to invest a crazy amount of money in free agency either. The Angels are just in a really bad place, which is another thing that's out of Trout's control. In the end, Mike Trout's story is one of immense talent, unprecedented success, and heartbreaking what-ifs. While his early career set the stage for what could have been the greatest baseball legacy ever, the unfortunate string of injuries has left us wondering about the player he could have become. Despite the setbacks, Trout's resilience and continued excellence while on the field are a testament to his greatness. Whether he'll be remembered as the best that ever was or the greatest what-if in MLB history remains to be seen, but one thing is for sure, Mike Trout has already left an incredible mark on the game. Thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed the video, make sure to subscribe, like the video, I really appreciate it, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.